Hi friends, welcome back to another recording. I am coming to you with another recording for Bloodmarked, which is book 2 in the Legendborn Cycle by Tracy Dion. When we left off, I had recapped everything that I had thought so far up through chapter 30. And obviously that was about halfway through the book and it was a lot, but knowing that I want to do these read-along series, I wanted to start. So I gave my thoughts for that. And now I have read chapters 31 through 36, but I want to take a step back first. So this portion of the book, I think when Sel and Bree get saved from the Order and William is there and Alice is there and all the people that are helping them, I think that's kind of when the beginning of the rest of the book happens, right? You have almost this before, which is this world where the Order is, this entity that you're still trying to understand fully. You know that they have a lot of power, but you're thinking that they're not that good. And then you have this period where after you realize that they really just don't give a shit about anything other than like their reputation and power and saving face, you get into the beginning of the rest of this book and what I think is the turning point for the series in terms of like uncovering that, right? I think it's safe to say, at least for me as a reader, I knew that the Order had some nefariousness going on. I knew that there was going to be something there that wasn't completely perfect and pristine about them. It's inevitable in stories like this, but really seeing it come to life for the characters and seeing the story turn as they are running for their lives from the Order really reinforces that. So that had already happened by the time that I had done the first recording for Bloodmarked. Now we're where they're on the road and like really experiencing what life is on the run in effort to try to put Brianna in a place where she can be safe. What I will say is I think that being at chapter 30 or finishing chapter 30 was already a little more than halfway through this book. I am recording this with hopeful optimism because I'll get to it, but I want you all to remember hopeful optimism when I come back to it as a feeling and a theme later in this recording. So first off, when they hit the road and they're on their way, there's a little bit of time spent around them having to stop at the gas station for gas, but also needing to go to the bathroom and getting denied. William being able to go, but Alice and Bree not being able to go. And they're laying the groundwork for the fact that, this is in the South, you're starting to be more in the South, and that you have people of color and that they aren't letting them use the bathroom. And it's a very small piece in this chunk of the book that I read, but it's important because there's one point where Alice says something like, these are the people that you're supposed to protect. You have this duty to protect humans from demons, and it includes people who are racist like that. And William and them are like, yeah, we may not like it, but yes, like it is our duty, unfortunately, because William was even pissed. Like they all were. Sel, William, Bree, Alice were all obviously disgusted by the whole thing, but William is acknowledging like, yeah, in theory that is what we're supposed to do. And Alice makes this comment about like, if we were under attack, I might just ease up a little bit for people like that, to where like I wouldn't protect them as much, kind of thing. And obviously she's human and she doesn't have powers and she's new to this, so she, as is Bree, but Alice more than anybody doesn't fully understand everything. But it's also, for her, this is real life, right? You have Sel and William who are full in this world of like magic and the Order and Cambion and Scions and whatever. You have Bree who's in the middle, and then you have Alice who's human and who has dealt with racism before and has just dealt with humans most of the time up until these recent, whatever span of time where all this shit has gone down that she's been drugged into. And so her reaction is very much like personal and angry, and rightfully so. And so, she makes this comment, and there's a line where Bree is just reflecting to herself where she's like, nobody said anything. Like nobody said anything after what Alice said, because even though we could say this or say that about what Alice had said, we all just stayed silent. And it's, I think, thinking about that now, it's this, again, this kind of turning in this story where more and more the characters are realizing that when you're bringing humans into the fold, and when you have the scion of Arthur who is a Black woman, you can't ignore these kinds of things or just brush it off or just be okay with being other. Like, it is ingrained into their identity, and these are women who are not afraid to speak about it, even though in that location they just knew what it was and kind of kept it to themselves. And William and Sel were the ones that were like, what the fuck is this? There's this eye opening, I think, in this realization and kind of turning of the tide of the people more in the magical world starting to realize that this is a new age and a new era when you have a leader who is of color, and you have friends who are of color, and people who have had very human experiences. That doesn't just go away because they come into the magical world and they have power. Granted, Alice doesn't, but you get my point. It's very much a part of it through and through. So they touch on this. It's important throughout all of these stories, and they touch on these kinds of themes, but I'm interested to see how that continues to evolve or be touched on or addressed. I just think there's something about that being an integral part of like the turning of the tides with what Brianna's trying to do and changing this world that she's in. I'm interested to see what comes of that. So after that goes down, they finally get to the place that they're going to, and they quickly realize that there's magic here and people here, and they don't feel safe, and it feels very questionable, but yet they go in, right? And you can just kind of tell everyone's on edge, a little bit uncomfortable, but it seems to be fine. They get a table, they get some drinks, and they even have this dialogue about like Bree's outfit, because they both get hot, so they take their jackets off, and Bree's wearing more of a low-cut shirt, and she's kind of embarrassed, but they're like, you look so good. And, they even ask Sel, like, how does she look? And he's like, she looks nice. And Alice is like, what the fuck do you mean nice? Like, that's not good enough, But anyway, they have all these little banters, and it seems like they might kind of be like, they're on edge, but they might kind of be leveling out to get through this situation and get to where they need to be. They go to the bathroom, and almost immediately when Alice goes in and Bree is just sitting against the wall with like her eyes closed, kind of decompressing for a minute, Sel is up next to her and touches her, and it kind of like rocks her world for a second. And they have a spicy interaction where he basically takes his mask off. He is that guy where he's only this version of Sel with Bree, and nobody else is seeing that version. And he takes whatever intimate moment he can take with her, even if it's in a public place in this hallway waiting for Alice to finish going to the bathroom. He's going to take whatever 30 seconds to a minute, whatever he gets, to have those interactions with her. And so this is one of those. And I'm smiling as I say it because it makes me giddy, because he's like, yes, I have many more words in my vocabulary than nice. Like, you looked devourable is what he said. And like Bree, he was saying like, there's many things I could say, and like that I'm thinking of. Bree's like, well, I wish that you would just say them. Like, she's getting bolder in her pull towards Sel and in her desire for him. And it's understandable because they're in the middle of what is going to inevitably become like a war, and they're all emotions are all over the place. They are just trying to survive, but also this closeness of him being around, he is there to protect her to the best that he can when he can't do what he's supposed to be doing with his oath. And it was this moment where you're just kind of like, oh gosh, like I want more of that, right? I want y'all to be able to have what it is that you seemingly are tiptoeing around, right? And so then it's like he gets it all together and goes back to just being like his stoic self because Alice comes out. And as a reader by this point, it's because he can hear her in the bathroom, right? So he knows when she's getting done and washing her hands and is going to come out, so he can just get it together and whatever. I'm loving that as a reader, we're at the point where a lot of that doesn't have to be said, where you just know that certain things are happening or his actions because he can hear or see things because of his abilities. But anyway, so that moment happened, and then very, very quickly it turns into like, we are in danger. There's mention of a broker here. A broker is the one that brought that demon to us at the house. And as I pull out the book again, the demon that was at the house, I think is Kizia, that they killed, talked about a broker. And so they're like, fuck, we got to get out of here. Like, there's no way. Like, why are we at a place where there's mention of a broker? And without recapping all of what goes down, shit hits the fan. Sel makes a scene, and Bree goes to like intervene to try to get him not to. And then all hell breaks loose. And so the guy who's like the owner of the bar or whatever, he's like, I'm the broker. And he's like, y'all need to come with me. And then when they're in the room, there is this moment where Bree's like, why are you causing a scene? You're supposed to pay the bill. Like, you were the one person who's so strict on, she didn't say all this, but it's my frustration coming through because this was my thought process. You're the one person who's like protector A, and you're so strict about what we can and can't do and how we have to lie low and all of this shit. And you're up there just totally mouthing off. Like, in what way does that make any sense at all? And he's like, well, I just don't deal with warlocks because they're humans and they make bargains for their power. And it's just disgusting. Like, you know, he's just having this reaction to them. And in the normal sense of mage versus a warlock, sure. But in this moment of like survival, you lost yourself, Cell. Like, what the hell are you doing? So I was very frustrated as well and annoyed that happened. But it kind of comes full circle because there is this point where in exchange in this room with Sal and Bree and the broker, where they realize he's not the only broker. And so they breathe a little bit more easy because they thinking that he's not the one that comes after her. And you do soon come to find out he doesn't do death deals and like murder contracts. So it isn't the broker that sent Kizia. But in this entire exchange, you come to find out that Sel had been mesmering Bree. And very quickly after that, when they get out of this whole kerfuffle and they finally get off to go see Lucille, who's the whole person that they were coming to see in the first place, you come to find out that Alice and William were not mesmered. It was just Bree. And she's like, of course, it's just me, right? They're going to end up having to have a dialogue. Her and Sel are going to end up having to have a conversation. And I can only hope now in advance that they really actually say the truth and that there isn't just this pussyfooting around, because her and Sel do a lot of this dancing around words where they say things without saying things, which is why the hallway scene with the bathroom was a little bit more exciting, because it felt a little bit more raw, because they're in this survival situation and Sel is like up in her grill, like right next to her, face to her neck, like talking to her very closely and like saying things like, there's a bunch of things I could say and think about how you look and like how I feel towards you. And you feel like you're starting to get towards this truth, right? And Bree's even like, you know, I want you to say it. And like you can tell that it's going to come at some point where just all bets are off. And they've had, in non-romantic situations, they've had very frank conversations where they've just been bickering at each other, yelling at each other. And so like they're capable of it. But with this is a very personal but intimate but hurtful situation where he mesmered her. I hope when it comes time that they have the conversation that it's frank and that it's honest and that it isn't some type of beat around the bush type of shit, and that Sel is just completely honest with her. But if I had to project, especially because he only mesmered her, and especially because he has the cuffs on still, he can't call ether, he can't do his full duties, he's using some of the power that he has to keep his image intact to her, it's because he's embarrassed. It's because I think it's layered. I don't think he wants her to worry. I don't think, especially when she decides that Nick is not who they're going to go after and that she agrees to go protect herself, I think he realizes she's only going to continue to do that if she thinks that I'm somewhat okay. But the thing with the mesmer is, while she could sense some stuff wasn't right with him, she can see it now. He physically looks pretty rough. And physically his body is changing and like he's changing. And Alice was like, I even said that he looked rough. I figured you could see it. Like, they didn't catch on to it. I think that Bree just thought that people could kind of pick up on these subtle things that she was to an extent, and knew that he was off and knew that it was a struggle. But now that she can see it, she's feeling a lot of emotions, right? So let's talk about Sells first. I think that he doesn't want her to worry because he wants her to be convicted into saving herself and getting herself help and like focusing on that, because he knows that if she does it to the best of her ability, that will be the best chance that they have to get through everything. I think also, though, he is embarrassed. I think that he has feelings for her. I think that that's obvious. And I think that he doesn't want her to see him as less than, and doesn't want her to be distracted or to be worried or to like not be attracted to him anymore, or whatever all the things are that come with all of those feelings and emotions, right? But an interesting thing happened in this is when she's processing him having mesmered her in the room when they're still with the broker, and it's the initial shock of it. Her inner monologue is like, oh, him saying things to me like I'm devourable, or being close to me at the house, like, is that the demon side starting to win over, right? That's not his feelings. That's not his emotions for me, because the demon side gets a little bit stronger the longer that you don't do your oath. And because they feed on emotions, maybe he has been putting me in types of situations to where he can like feed off of that, right? And she even says something to him like that, like, are you doing that so that way you can feed off of how upset I can get or whatever in certain moments? And he's like, no, like I would never do that. And so you can tell that it's going to be a very layered thing. She's thinking a lot of shit, and Sel knows that, and he can't talk his way out of it. And now he knows that the joke's on him. There's no hiding it now. So yeah, they're going to obviously have to have a very pointed conversation. In a way, it's heartbreaking, but the first thing that I thought wasn't the demon side of him, wasn't him and his failure to do the oath. It's him and his feelings for her. And that's what I mean when I say that when they have the conversation, I hope that he can own up to it and just be truly honest of like, I didn't want you to see me that way. I want you to just know me for the best that I can be. And I knew that you knew that I was struggling anyway, but I didn't want you to have to see it physically on me. And like, I hope he can just be vulnerable. So that aside, now they're in a place where they're with Lucille. And this is where it's going to get interesting. And this is where the hope comes in. Okay. They get to Lucille. They find out that Lucille is like the many, many times generations niece of the broker. And the broker, while he looks like a college boy, is like 200 years old. And with Lucille is Mariah. And Mariah and Bree have a moment because she's like, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? And Lucille's like, Mariah, how do you know these people? And she's like, from college and whatever. Couple of things are happening, right? Mariah isn't telling Lucille certain things, and Bree is thankful for that. In this moment, at least, Mariah is not telling her certain things and just letting her navigate it to herself. Bree is telling Lucille some stuff, but not all things. She tells them that they had this run-in with Kizia, that they know there's a broker who ends up being this like hunter guy. He's called the Hunter. And that the order is after them and that they need help. And Lucille's like, well, just because you're struggling and whatever, why should I help you? And Bree starts talking about how she's done memory walks and how she's seen certain things. And like, I know my ancestors. I know what it is that they've sacrificed. I'm willing to fight for what it is that they were fighting for. I need help. I need you to train me, and I need the ability to be able to do that. And Mariah's like, if she can do it, she could take down the Hunter herself. And Sel's like, well, we're not going to train her for your own benefit. But Bree cuts in immediately, and it was like, yes, we are. And the thing that hit me even before that monologue finished is like, Sel, it's one and the same though. If the Hunter is after people like Bree, he's going to be after Bree. And her not being able to defend herself is a problem. It's been a problem whether the Hunter's around or not. It's a problem with the Hamlin War. You have to let her learn. And so as much as I understand his point of she isn't going to be used as a pawn. If she wasn't going to be used as a pawn for the Order, she's not going to be used as a pawn for you. And I agree with that. And I could see her potentially in this storyline getting a little bit caught up in what she's about to learn and how she's about to gain control and wanting it to lean more into these people, into the root crafter community. But if I know anything about how a lot of these stories go, I think she's going to be able to see through both sides and find a way through that appeases her and who she wants to be. But all that to say, she's like, well, we're doing this. And then they're ready to help her do that. And that's kind of where we leave off at the beginning of chapter 37. So I certainly think I'm going to keep reading today. I might even do another record. I mean, to be honest with you, it feels really good to be able to sit down on the weekend and read and to power through even as many chapters as I did before recording this. Like, I was like, oh, did I really start at the end of chapter 30 and already get to chapter 37? So it's coming along really easy. This book is an easy read for me because it's so interesting and I want to know what happens. So I want to keep reading. So I think I'm going to take a little bit break and then I'll read more. But I wanted to record because I think I say all of these things because I'm hopeful for a couple of things, right? I'm hopeful that Bree and Sel can really get to a place where we kind of know the direction of their relationship. And I hope that we're not figuring that out right up until the end when we inevitably probably get Nick back and then like it's awkward. I kind of hope it's somewhat established. So even though it is going to be awkward when Nick returns, that her and Sel aren't doing this weird dance with Nick around. But if I had to bet, I'm sure that the weird dance is going to be happening when Nick is around because that's just the way that these things go. I am hopeful though that now that Bree is about to walk into this place and they're going to train her, that she fucking owns it. And that is what I was kind of saying at the beginning. I hope that this is not some false hope, because I feel like there have been moments where Bree has been like, I'm ready, I'm here, I'm committed, let's do this. And then like she just falls flat. She just can't find her way through for whatever reason. And I appreciate at the same time, on the other side of that coin, the painting of the picture and the fact that she has so much power. She almost doesn't know what to do with it, and she almost doesn't know how to deal with it, because that's so real. Like I couldn't even imagine that either, and it makes a lot of sense. So I get it at the same time, but I'm also like, I'm so tired of it. Like we're almost, we're in the latter part of the second book, which makes me more than halfway through the series of 3 that exists at this time for these books. I don't know if there's going to be more than 3, but I'm more than halfway through the series, and she hasn't owned it yet. She hasn't found a way to just kick ass and take names. And part of me understands, because when she does, she's going to be powerful as fuck, right? She's the king of Scion. She's a blood crafter. Like, she has this power in her and this root crafter community. She's going to just kick ass and take names. So I get that it's like, you got to give her some time, because by the time she gets it, she's just going to own it. But part of me also is like, well, you wouldn't have to do that, right? Like, once she figures it out and gets control of her power, it's going to be a bumpy ride. She's not going to be able to figure it out right away. There could still be a lot of time where she still can do what she needs to do, but and be able to defend herself and kick ass and take names without it being like, fully King Arthur Scion Bree in a perfect way, no mistakes abound. Again, all that to say, my point is, I am hopeful that she really is about to learn some serious shit and to really step into her own. And it's extremely important, in my opinion, with Cell being to the extent that he is, they need protection. I also just hope that, because Cell is struggling so much, that they get these damn puffs off of him so he can call Ether. It's making all of this worse, and it's kind of boggling to me how they're in this place with so many magical people and they haven't figured that out yet. So and in the back of my mind, I've been wondering if they're going to be able to track them because of those bracelets. And that is ringing around in my head. And I'm actually really surprised that nobody has mentioned that. I don't really understand what they are, other than it limits his ability to call Ether. So like, I don't know if it's just a magical thing or if it's specific to the order. So maybe if it's just a magical thing that like exists that anybody could get, in theory, the tracker point wouldn't be valid. But if it's specific to the order, then I'm like, how has nobody mentioned that they could be tracking? So anyway, I hope that they're able to get his cuffs off soon, and that as Bree steps into her power, her or somebody else can take care of that, and he can at least have that. So we'll see. I don't know that I'm going to continue to record every 5 or 6 chapters, because I still have quite a bit left to go in this book, and we'll see how it is with her going into this training and hopefully really stepping into her power. So thank you all for listening and following along, and we'll see you at the next episode of this series. Bye, friends.